Chapter 11. Back to School. Back in the attic of the ramshackle house, Adorabat and Badgerclops were starting to get stressed out. They had both been helping the little quiet ghost decide what costume to wear, but so far the ghost didn't quite seem to agree with their choices. At this point, the Bat and Badger felt like they had gone through the entire wardrobe, with almost no part of the attic remaining unturned.
Grrr, are ghosts always so indecisive?
Badgerclops grunted in frustration, clenching both sides of his head as he reached the breaking point. Just when I thought girls looked good in anything. Adorabat groaned, sitting on the wooden attic floor as she no longer had the energy to even fly after all that work. Despite her aggressive frustration, she still tried to resist her urge to scream at the spectral being when she turned to talk to it, though she still sounded quite loud.
Why don't you like any of these costumes? What is it you want to wear?
The ghost still flinched from Adorabat's outburst, despite knowing it wasn't as intense as it was at the beginning, but couldn't speak its reasons, unfortunately. All it could do was drift back to the crayon drawing that still hung on the menacing ghost painting. The ghost gestured with its noodly arms on the two drawn sweet typies that were on either side of the drawn version of itself. Adorabat watched the presentation carefully, slightly tilting her head in moderate confusion. From what she could see from the crayon drawing, the ghost wanted to be outside with the sweet typies, desiring to be friends with them and live alongside them without fear. But Adorabat then noticed another detail in the picture. The drawn version of the ghost was positioned between the two drawn sweet typey kids, but it was not in a costume. It was shown to be simply the way it was, a ghost. That's when it clicked.
Badgerclops!
She turned to the badger, whose name she just called.
I think I figured out the costume!
Badgerclops threw his hands up and let out a groaning sigh of relief.
Finally! A choice had been made! I was just about ready to slam down a costume on that ghost and be done with it!
Badgerclops felt like he was there forever, though it was only for a few hours. He thought for sure he was going to be late for pie. But knowing that a solution had finally been realized and there was still time before the pie event to make it there, Badgerclops was finally able to relax.
So what's the verdict?
He asked Adorabat about the final costume decision. Adorabat didn't answer right away. Instead, she focused her attention on the ghost while holding a dusty white bedsheet that appeared to be crudely stitched in some parts. "Hold still," she politely told the ghost in front of her. When she was sure the ghost was doing as she asked it, she then tossed the bedsheet over the spirit, letting the piece of cloth fall on it until the ghost was completely covered by the sheet. Badgerclops appeared to slump, seemingly feeling a little let down about how overly simple this costume was.
"Really?" he remarked. "What's that supposed to be?"
"It's a ghost," was Adorabat's complete answer. "Some of us dressed as ghosts before, so this fits perfectly." She smiled and put her wings on her side, feeling proud of her realization. The ghost seemed to agree, lifting both its arms in joy, which lifted corners of the cloth with them. Badgerclops, on the other hand, didn't look that impressed.
"Of course, they're a living Harvest Moon decoration. Who would have thought?"
He muttered like he heard what he heard 1,000,000 times already. But nevertheless, he went along with Adorabat's recommendation, approaching the now shrouded ghost and then converted his arm to a tool set needed to fix it up. Meanwhile, back on the streets of Pure Heart Valley, Mao and Momo, plus the two accompanying Candy Cup witches, were making the trek back to the school. It only made sense to return there since that place was the scene of the toilet paper crime, the scene of where said crime was allegedly perpetrated by a ghost.
"Well, let's hope we find this ghost,"
Mao grumbled while keeping a hand on his hilted sword.
"I'm really not in the mood to be chasing down something that should have completely disappeared months ago for nothing."
Momo took out her wand and held it at her side. I guess you don't want to miss the pie. Well, yeah, that too. Momo looked away, half-heartedly caught in the dilemma of whether or not to deny this selfish part of himself that longed for a slice. Farmer Brun always grew the best pumpkins for the pie. Don't forget that Muffins always prepared that pie the best out of any baker in the valley. Momo noted in addition. All she got from the sheriff was a nod. Eventually, everyone made it back to the school, going around to the backyard where they stood where the rain of toilet paper occurred. It was when they got there that they noticed the ramshackle house that stood at the end at the very back of the yard of grass. In fact, it was the first time Mao actually paid attention to it. Hey, Momo. He turned to the smaller black hat girl and pointed at the great house. Do you know anything about that? Momo looked where Mama was pointing and saw the little building in question. I think I've seen it a few times whenever I went outside to read. She moved a little closer to the house. I wasn't really that curious enough to try and find more about it, but after I asked any teacher who was walking around at the time, she paused. I was told it's just a place to store old items. The answer seemed to make Mao look visibly disappointed. Really? Really? I would have thought such a run-down thing would be grounds for a haunting. He took wider and faster strides, making it to the edge of the house's extremely shadowed porch first, but stopping short of actually stepping onto it. Where are Badgerclops and Adorabat anyway? He wondered out loud, sounding a little confused and irate at the same time. I'm absolutely sure they would have given up on their patrol search around this area already. With Badgerclops, these tasks don't even last 5 minutes. In a moment of serendipity, his eyes widened upon seeing the front door of the ramshackle house slowly opening up, a droning creak emanating from the hitches. Neither he nor Momo knew what was coming out at the moment, but they were prepared for anything. Momo immediately unsheathed his sword and held it pointed out in front of him, while Momo took an elegant stance with her wand raised above her head. Who's coming out? Momo ferociously called to the mysterious door opener. Surrender now, or... Bro. Chill. Both black cats immediately seized and lowered their guard after hearing the sound of Badgerclop's voice. The door opened all the way to reveal the enormous badger stepping out of the house, looking unaffected by Mama's aggression from a few seconds ago. What caught Mama further off guard was the sudden arrival of Adorabat swooping past the badger's shoulder and right at the sheriff's face. Mama! She cried affectionately as she flew close enough to Mao that he instantly sheathed his sword and caught her in both hands, slowing down her momentum until he was holding her in a swaddling manner. Adorabat, Mama responded as he held her. After taking a moment to nuzzle her face with his own, he then held her out at appropriate talking distance. Have you and Badgerclops been in there this whole time? What did you find? Adorabat appeared to hesitate for a bit, as though she was searching her brain for something to say. Well, we didn't find the toilet paper, prankster, but we found lots of cool stuff in this house. It was like a treasure hunt. At the same time, Mamo noticed that over Adorabat's shoulder the Badgerclops closed the door from behind, but selected a small white corner from near his feet. Hold it right there! Mamo called loudly, making both the bat and badger freeze. He slowly pointed at where Badgerclops stood while narrowing his eyes. What's that next to you, Badgerclops? Badgerclops let his eye trail to where Mao was pointing. Oh, that? Oh, that? He responded, moving aside to reveal a short little person wearing a bedsheet over themselves, a pair of eye holes cut from the sheet for them to see through. This is just another sweet-timey kid we found. Yeah. He tried to be inconspicuously casual about it as he rubbed the back of his head. There were costume problems and the kid needed something else to wear, so he helped out. Mamo didn't appear to be settled, though. Really?
And would this kid be involved with a such and such regarding flying ribbons of paper by any chance? Dude, you're still on about that? Badgerclops complained. He pointed both hands at the ghost-themed costumer. This is a kid and a sweet typee. No way could someone of that caliber be able to do a carpet-showering prank of that scale.
Mao tried to ignore the fact that Momo had told him something like that as well. As far as he was concerned, there was a potential suspect present, and it seemed to fit the description, or at least look similar, to what Pinky had claimed about what really happened. He was the sheriff, and he wasn't going to pass this up.
Well, you should know that we were tipped off that a ghost was behind the prank.
He walked straight up to the ghost-dressed person next to Badgerclops.
Doesn't seem wise for a prankster to come out in the open with that in mind.
He was met with resistance from Badgerclops, who stood right between Mao Mao and the costumed ghost.
Mao, we've all been doing this for hours now. This person was wearing some other costume that wasn't a ghost and just wants to party. Just let this go, man, at least for tonight.
Mao Mao was just as resistant.
Just let me check this first.
But soon enough, he felt a hand tug at his cape, which prompted him to look behind to see Momo as the one doing it.
Mr. Mao Mao, maybe Mr. Badgerclops has a point,
she said to him diplomatically.
It's Harvest Moon, and stuff like pranks are common and expected. We're all trying to have fun, and no one means anything malicious when they misbehave. Besides, that costumer over there isn't a real ghost, so why don't we just drop it for now?
Mao Mao looked back at the ghost-dressed kid hiding behind Badgerclops and shielded by Adorabat standing below. The person looked rather scared of him and didn't seem to behave any more suspiciously than sweet typees like Pinky. There was also the consideration that the strips of toilet paper that landed on the roofs of the neighbouring houses were neither high in quantity nor tangled in the structures badly. The mess would be incredibly easy to clean up by tomorrow. Mao Mao considered that he had been doing the chase for hours, and he had yet to see any more of Harvest Moon's festivities. Perhaps it wasn't that big of a deal.
Mao Mao sighed. All right. Let's drop it then.
He growled inwardly from hearing the excited cheers of the others around him.
But, he interrupted, turning his gaze on the little sweet typee, dressed as a ghost, which prompted said sweet typee to cower a little. Don't think of trying anything funny, 'cause I will be watching.
Once he got a nod of compliance from the little costumer, Mao Mao turned away to begin heading back to town, with Badgerclops, Adorabat, and the Candy Cup Witches in tow. The little ghost tagged along closely, staying by the side of the Bat and Badger, who had helped it find what was perhaps the best costume for spending enjoyable time with sweet typees in.